Hi everyone, this is audap. Let's continue our game of Fatal 12 on Nintendo Switch. Alright. All three of us enjoy lunch on the rooftop as usual. Times like this are when I can relax the most. Just as I'm enjoying my tonkatsu sandwich, a familiar voice calls out as the rooftop door opens. Miharu makes eye contact with her but says nothing. Both Naomi and I understand why, so Naomi makes her business clear right away. She hands 3 tickets over to us. The word coffee is printed in the middle in an oversized font. Beneath that it says, Amicha Girls University High School Cultural Festival.
うちのクラスのように気の抜けた出し物をするところが多いから、羊さんのように真剣にやるところは珍しく、学校の宣伝になるというわけだね。
そうかもしれないけど、でもナオミすごいね。頑張った甲斐があった。
本番はまだですけどね。でもリンカ先輩のおかげです。先輩がコーヒーを教えてくれたから、私ものめり込んで。
ナオリンはさ、コスプレとかしないの？
Mao poses a new question to cut off the current conversation. Naomi's face turns a bright red in response.
コスプレですか？三島先輩みたいな。
僕のはバイトの制服だよ。
すみません。そういうことしようって言ってた子はいましたけど、私は別に。
ナオリン、フラグって言葉を知ってるかい？
フラグ？旗ですか？
まあそんな感じ。当日を楽しみに待ってるよ。
Mao shoots a wry smile at Naomi.
そういえばナオリン、文化祭の次の週だから、再来週の土曜日って空いてる？またこのメンバーで遊びに行こうって話をしてるんだけど、どう？
再来週？大丈夫ですけど、私が行ってもいいんですか？その。
僕は構わないよ。ねえ、リンカ。
うん。まだどうするか決めてないけど、久しぶりに出かけよっか。
リータン、うちのカラオケって案はどこ行ったの？
私楽しみにしてます。でもちゃんと文化祭の時は来てくださいね。
ナオミ、いや大丈夫。残り1週間だけど頑張ってね。
I do my best to swallow the words I was about to say to her as she walks off. Miharu fires a glance at me as I do. I can only imagine the feelings behind her current expression.
お二人さん、早く食べないと昼休み終わっちゃうよ。
Divine selection is in my thoughts more often than I'd like these days, but Mao's comment ejected from my mind for a little bit. Another day spent eating lunch together with friends under a blue sky. Another day spent casually treading the thin line between the life I want and the reality I must face. Once school is over, I catch up with Miharu on her way home.
どうしたんだい？リンカの方から僕に声をかけてきてくれるなんて。
Miharu is already aware of the situation after her help in fending off numeral 11. I don't want to skimp on the details, so I make sure she gets the full story about Saturday night.
昨日の消えたカードのこと。
残念だね。この後お茶でもと思ったけれど、僕はバイトがあるから付き合えないんだ。
分かってる。だから簡潔に。4の少年のこととか美晴には話してるから意見が聞きたくって。
凛花は4番未練のカードを取得したと言っていたね。12番の男性が取得したものと同じだ。
I nod, then Miharu continues. We both offer our thoughts on why and how the card disappeared like that. Both of us seem to have the same idea, too. Miharu tries to make her way to the situation after that, but I stop her again. There's something that's been nagging at me that I need to talk to her about.
それとね、もう一つ。この前の選定で脱落した牛塚さんの話を聞いていて思ったことがあるんだ。
彼の話、それはどんな内容かな。
人と人の関係の話かな。私たちは生きている限りいろんな人間関係の中にいるけど、誰かに行動を強要することはできない。
羊さんのことかい？
どうしてわかったの？
君のことだからね。半ば無理やり羊さんを選定に関わらせないようにしたことについて迷っているんだろう。先に伝えておくよ。僕の意見は変わらない。羊さんが選定に関わることは危険に足を踏み入れるということだ。でもね、リンカ、確かに君の言う通りだ。キミックス、そもそも僕がリンカのために命を捧げると決めたのも自分の意志で、リンカが数度しか会っていない選定の参加者のためにおせっかいするのも自分の意志なのにね。
そうだよね。
It's so obvious now that she mentions it. Everyone's acting of their own accord. Miharu chewed me out for it, but that never stopped me from getting involved with Kaiko, Sonya, and Shigetsugu and you. I stuck by my choices.
とはいえ、羊さんは文化祭に向けて大事な時期だ。大切なことを話すつもりなら、せめてその後をお勧めするよ。
分かってる。ありがとね。
Looks like Miharu knew exactly why I tried to stop Naomi, just as I figured. I might be the type of person to act before I think, but this time around I knew it'd be best to do the opposite. After parting ways with Miharu, I end up near Shigetsugu's house. I made sure to tell her I'd be doing so, to which she offered the warning, just be careful. Numeral 4's regret card is gone, that much is a fact. I wasn't sure if I had it in me to elect you, but that's irrelevant now that I don't have all his cards. The time will come when I have to steel myself for the inevitable. I won't be able to keep myself safe should you end up gathering all my information either. That's why I made my way here, to confirm whether or not our guess was correct. It isn't long before the reality of the matter will overturn that logic, however. I stand in front of Shigetsugu's house, mouth agape. That might not be the right way to put it. The house I've become so familiar with is no longer there. In its place, an empty lot. Not a single trace remains of the place Shigetsugu spent his final days. A gust of wind blows through the lot as if to accentuate the emptiness I feel. At the same time, I notice a familiar figure.
どうして僕を指名してくれなかったの？
It's numeral 4, you. His appearance hasn't changed since we last spoke, but his voice sounds somewhat younger.
どうしてお姉ちゃんは僕を殺してくれなかったの？殺してほしいってお願いしたのに。
He somehow sounds even more serious than he did Saturday night.
次の選定の時は僕を殺してくれる？
わからない。
That's all I can muster. He casts his gaze to the ground before replying.
やっぱりこのままだったら未練を教えてもお姉ちゃんは僕の指名に踏み切れないよね。
His voice grows deeper than before. His eyes are as empty as they were in the court of fate.
今はまだお姉ちゃんは迷ってるけど、お姉ちゃんには必ず僕を殺してもらうからね。
ゆうくん、記憶が戻ったんだよね。だからゆうくんの持っていた本当の未練がカードに変わったから、私たちの持っていたカードが消えた。 眠っていた記憶には何があったの？
地獄だよ。
I'm not sure what he means, but it doesn't seem to matter to him. He turns his back to me before continuing.
お姉ちゃんにも覚悟をしてもらうよ。
待って、もっと。
He ignores my plea.
僕はお前に必ず。
I fail to catch his final words before he leaves, but the tone of his voice had changed yet again. It felt as though each and every word he said pierced me. As he fades into the sunset on the horizon, it reminds me of someone marching into a blazing hellfire. Once home, all I can do is think about what you said, about how I don't have it in me to elect him. It's true that he asked me to do so, but I never even had the opportunity to apologize for denying him that request. I open up my card book once more.
これは残ってるんだ。
As suspected, his memories have returned. His mother's cooking was a regret born from his amnesia. There's no doubt it was rooted deep in his psyche, but also inherently different from the regret he held before losing his memories. By that logic, it's odd that his name card didn't disappear along with his regret after containing his memories. But the name card is still here. If the cards are based on personal perception, then it makes sense. So, two possibilities exist. The first is that he had no name before. The second is that he doesn't consider his previous name to be his real one, leaning towards that idea. For example, he wants to distance himself from his previous self due to some bad experiences. Shiketsugu conjectured that his skill in combat came from being in an environment that demanded it. If that's the case, then he's likely been through all sorts of things that a normal person like me can't even imagine.
残酷だったのかな、私は。
I can understand why he'd want to be eliminated to avoid remembering all that he'd gone through. He's likely struggling with his past right now. My own hesitation has caused him to suffer. It's something I should have realized with ease, yet I unconsciously avoided it. Eliminating another is the same as killing them. I was simply too scared to shoulder that sin.
ナオミがいたら、なんて言うかな。
What would I have done if she were here, if she shouldered that sin with me? Things are different from before, though. I'm not sure how she'd react to me possibly eliminating someone.
考えても仕方ないか。誰にもわからないことだから。
Once again, I seal the cap on my emotions. I opt to run away, all the while overlooking the future in store for me. In the end, I spent my days following that as normal. The only notable difference is everyone getting ready for their cultural festival. I put a temporary hold on my efforts to gather information too, mainly because I was curious about what you said. I expected him to make some sort of move against me, so I've been half-heartedly watching out for that. I made sure to fill Miharu in too. Somewhat ironic how I chose to not form a pact with her, and yet we're practically working together. We haven't shared the details of one another's cards, but that's about it. Miharu seems to be at something of a loss regarding how to proceed herself. As for Alan and numeral 11, I haven't seen them since our last encounter. Alan did mention that he was trying to get his hands on information pertaining to that duo, so it's possible that both parties are scouting each other out now.
全然ダメだ。
I decided to go for a walk through the park to take my mind off things. The culture festival starts tomorrow and ends Sunday. I shouldn't have to worry about being elected this week, so as long as I don't have the same... I don't do the same to... Wait. I shouldn't have to worry about being elected this week, so as long as I do the same to anyone else... Wait, so as long as I don't do the same to anyone else? Moving on. I hope that little things settle down... I hope that things settle down a bit during the culture festival since I've been hitting a wall so much recently. I need to get out my frustrations today in order to accomplish that, though. Oh my god, these sentences. Sitting down on my favorite bench, I gaze at the buildings in the distance. A single crow flies past, which makes the clock tower that already stands out all the more captivating. I still find it hard to believe that this is the final destination Parsha mentioned. To me, it's a place I associate with memories of my childhood and my talk with Naomi a while back. I have to admit, I'm surprised Miharu didn't tear me a new one on Monday. Maybe something changed in her during the divine selection. Actually, hang on. If anyone's changed, it's me. I'm able to talk things out with her now. The same might apply to her. I've noticed that we've been keeping fewer things from each other. People can't forcefully change one another, but The way we interact with others can change along with us. That said, Naomi never changed her attitude toward me, despite how I treated her. She did everything she could to maintain the status quo. I understand the weight behind her offer to share responsibility with me far more than I did back then. My phone rings as if in response to my mumbling. I open up my text app only to learn that it's none other than Naomi. The text reads, "What is it?" That's odd. It's like she heard what I just said, but that can't be. I didn't butt dial her or anything.
Senpai.
I hear a voice come from behind me. Part of me thinks I'm hearing things.
ナオミ。すみません。そんなに驚かせてしまうなんて思いませんでした。
いや、それはいいんだけど、あれ、どうして？準備は大丈夫？
はい。準備も大部分が終わってるので、今日はみんなで早く帰ったんです。その分、明日は早朝からなんですけどね。凛花先輩って遠足の前日にそわそわして眠れないって経験ありませんでしたか？
私はあんまり。
先輩らしいです。私はそんな子だったんです。それで緊張とか不安とかそういうので落ち着かなくって、ここに来れば落ち着くかなって思ったら先輩がいて、実は私たまにこの場所に来てたんです。凛花先輩が教えてくれたこの場所、私もすごく好きだから。
She struggles to hide her shy expression, not to mention her flushed cheeks. I feel myself cracking a smile.
ナオミはリーダーだしね。大変だ。
もうプレッシャーかけないでください。私って地味だから、ただでさえこういうの初めてで、昔から引っ込み思案だったから。
大丈夫だよ。
I know I shouldn't laugh, but there's just something inherently adorable about her. Part of me is envious over her ability to worry so much over something like this, but that isn't the main reason I find myself smiling.
初めて会った時からは考えられないね。
もう恥ずかしいから思い出さないでください。
懐かしい。あれはまだ4月の最初で。
It was the Saturday after the first and second years had their entrance and opening ceremonies, respectively. Class ended in the morning for us that day, but I was told to stay behind and finish all the homework I hadn't handed in. Not that it was my fault I hadn't done it. Gran was going to the countryside at the end of March, so I spent most of my time helping her with her luggage and making preparations for living on my own, not to mention the time spending learning the ropes so Lionhouse could stay open. Those were all personal circumstances, though. Bringing them up with my teacher felt like it'd just be making excuses, so I refused. Thus, I ended up retreating into the library to get it all done. The place was empty because the new term had just begun, with the exception of one person. That person was Hitsuji Naomi, who had just started her life at Amcha. She must be a real bookworm to visit the library already. That was my first impression of her. I made my way over to an empty seat, piling up all the homework waiting to be done. Naomi sat not too far from me, reading through a big pile of books. Thinking back, she must be a speed reader, considering she planned to finish the whole lot. I couldn't help but ponder aloud. She could have made some coffee and gotten cozy on her own bed to read if she just took them home. Granted, it wasn't my place to question her logic while I sat there to finish homework at the beginning of the new term. I'm not even sure how long we were in there for. All I remember was that it had grown pitch black outside. Just as I was about to leave to avoid being shouted at for staying past opening hours, I noticed that Naomi was still there. She wasn't reading, though. She looked like she was searching for something. She made her way through the bookshelves, checking the spines one by one. I can't recall if she said those exact words or not, but I did hear some sort of panic noise. Her expression and attitude made it all the more apparent.
ねえ、どうしたの？
すみません。もう帰りますから。
いや、私別に図書委員とかじゃないし、困ってるように見えたけど。
Her reaction forced me to remember my bad reputation. Miles said that rumors about me spread like wildfire, even over the most minor of things, so the first years may already be aware of me. Golden streaks in my hair, an intimidating expression, and petite. It hurt to admit it, but most people would recognize someone with such specific traits. Judging by her demeanor, it's obvious that she's too scared to talk.
まあいいや。何か探してるんでしょ？それだけ教えて。勝手に手伝うから。もうちょっとすると見回りの先生来て追い出されるよ。手伝うなって言うなら帰るけど、困ってるんでしょ？
I have fond memories of how funny her reaction to that was. Her eyes darted all over the place as she struggled to find a reply. Eventually, she stared right at me before speaking up.
自分の手帳を文庫本と間違えてしまっちゃって。本を読みながら歩いてたら間違えたことにも気づかなくって、
おっちょこちょい？
Apparently, she received the notebook from her mom as an enrollment gift. Losing it that fast might earn her a record or two. She'd probably get a prize in innovation for the way she did so too. That said, I felt bad for her. It didn't seem likely that anyone would stumble across it, considering how many books in the library had. Things would only get more difficult as the days passed and people switched them in and out. That's why I decided to help her out. A teacher eventually did come along to chase us off. I stopped searching at that point, instead opting to buy Naomi some time. An hour or so later, she managed to find it.
本当にご迷惑をおかけしました。ありがとうございました。先生も説得してくれて。
説得っていうのかな、あれ。まあでも見つかってよかったね。さ、帰りな。
駅まで一緒に。
私と一緒にいるところを見られたら変な噂でも立つかもよ。
噂？どうしてですか？
だってさっき私のこと怖がってなかった？
怖がってた？いえ、あれは恥ずかしくって。あんななくし方普通しないじゃないですか。
それもそうだね。
I felt dumb for worrying about my reputation. She didn't know, and my appearance hadn't intimidated her. It wasn't all that special a moment when I think about it, but somehow I felt like it was.
獅子舞凛花、よろしくね。
獅子舞先輩。私は羊直美です。よろしくお願いします。
I think it took less than a week for her to become more casual around me. I think it's worth noting that she tripped over herself on our way to the station. There was nothing special about how we met, yet it was a memorable occasion to me, regardless. Both of us laugh as we talked about the past.
そういえばさ、なんで図書室で手帳を出してたの？
読んだ本の題名とか感想とかを書くようにしてるんです。私にとってはそれが日記の代わりで、同じ本でも読む日によって感想が変わることもありますし。
It's taken 2 months, but now my curiosity is sated. It makes sense considering how organized she is.
ねえ、ナオミ。
先輩、
月曜日に言おうと。
We both speak at the same time, interrupting one another. The embarrassment that follows leads to a brief silence. We do it a second time, but now Naomi smiles.
どうぞ。
文 文化祭が終わったら話そうって考えてたんだけどさ、この機会だし言うね。私がナオミを突き放しちゃったこと謝ろうと思って。ごめんね、私の勝手で遠ざけちゃって。
そんな。だってリンカ先輩は私のこと心配してくれたから。それは分かってるから、そんな謝らなくっても。
Her eyes are darting all over again, but I make sure to keep my eyes on her. I need her to understand that she shouldn't hold back. Noticing that, she nods.
私はやっぱり弱いままだからね。もしナオミが良ければ。
Naomi cuts me off with a hug. She pulls me right in and squeezes hard enough that I feel each of her fingers caressing my back.
答えなんて決まってるじゃないですか。
ありがとう。
すみません、つい。
She pushes herself away from me, leaving her hands out in front of her. I grab both with my right hand and then place my left on top.
まあでもまずは明日と明後日の文化祭頑張ってね。
We spend some time chatting away following that. Once the park is about to close, we leave. It really is strange. The time we spent together in the park was brief, but it made me feel far better than I had in a long time.
おはようリンカ。
あ、おはよう。
Mihara arrives at school as I'm thinking back over the past week. We agreed to meet before moving on to help our class with stuff. Just waiting on Mao now. Then the three musketeers will have gathered.
今週ずっと考え込んでいるように見えたけれど、少しすっきりしたようだね。何かあったのかい？
何か。ちょっとお散歩しただけ。
くす。そうかい。難しい顔をするリンカも魅力的だけれど、今日くらいは気分転換をした方がいい。羊さんの頑張りの成果も見に行くのだろう。
意外だね、美晴がナオミのこと気にするなんて。
そうかな。僕もちゃんと彼女が頑張っていたことは認めているよ。
そうだね。
やっと笑ってくれたね。僕でも君を笑わせることができて安心しているよ。
大げさなんだから。
おはよう。いやー、寝坊しちゃったよ。
Mao turns up 5 minutes late. Her face, not to mention the bags under her eyes, make it obvious that she's pretty worn out.
文化祭だから余裕と思ってつい家にある漫画を読み返しちゃってたよ。あー、眠。
平日だって同じでしょ。まあちょっと早めに待ち合わせしておいたし大丈夫。行こうか。
お疲れ。
なんとも形容しがたい中途半端さだったね。僕たちのクラスの企画は。占いの館という安直な名前なのはともかくとして、部屋を暗くして水晶を置いておけば雰囲気が出ると思っているようだね。予算がないから衣装が黒い布をまとうだけというのは仕方がないけれど、僕たちの仕事がお客さんの占い結果を印刷して渡すだけというのは面白みに欠けるよ。
美晴、今日毒がすごいね。
まあまあ、うちはそれなりに楽しめたよ。
Mihara wasn't wrong, though. It was very meh, to say the least. The fortune-telling itself was done via PC program, bought by one of the girls familiar with that sort of stuff, so that wasn't bad. You put your date of birth and some other info in, and then it spits out a result based on horoscopes. It was our job to print and hand out said results to anyone who wanted them. She probably didn't get permission from the creator to use it for this, so the idea was a bit of a gray area. Then again, charging 100 yen per go probably tipped the scales.
しかし、 これでやっと文化祭を堪能できるね。
羊さんの喫茶店へ立ち寄ったら、僕は図書室で午後まで時間を潰して帰宅させてもらうけどね。
うちもまあでもみんな頑張ってるし、せっかくだし校内一周はしとかないとね。はあ、疲れたね。
We actually end up walking around the whole school. Mao doesn't have it in her to skip stuff she has no interest in, even if she sees that people put effort into it. Not sure if I should praise her for that or not. We're used to her dragging us around like this since last year, so neither me nor Miharu are bothered. Not that we'd admit it to her, of course. Well, we do skip out on the stuff going on at the auditorium and courtyard, so you could argue it was more of a case of self-gratification. There's still plenty to see and learn from going around and checking out different stuff, at least. Speaking of, there's one major thing I noticed we're doing.
校内カップ持ってる人が多いよね。
プラスチックのキャップのついた紙コップだね。
繁盛してるってことですな。校内で持ち運べるようにしたのは正解かもだね。
ナオミ頑張ってるかな。
リータンも気になる？じゃあそろそろナオリンの教室に突撃しよう。
We passed by once already, so we know which way to go. The corridors have been gradually filling up with people as the day drags on. We make our way through the crowd with one destination in mind.
おお、飾り付けしてある。
The first year classrooms are up on the third floor, which Naomi. The first year's classrooms are up on the third floor, with Naomi's being at the end of the corridor. There seems to be a lot of customers too, possibly thanks to the ticket they're selling at the reception area. One door is being used as the entrance and the other as the exit. A number of people are making their way out, plastic cups in hand. It feels similar to what you'd see at a big coffee shop chain. Granted, this is largely meant to be used as more of a rest area. You can see the dripping procedure as well, so I guess that's part of the experience. There's a nice fragrance making its way to the hallway. That's a good sign. It's probably one of the reasons why it's so busy. You normally don't get the chance to enjoy something like this at a school. I split the tickets between the three of us before we make our way in.
あれ、ナオリンは？
見当たらないね。
ちょっとうち聞いてみるよ。
She approaches one of the girls at the door to ask. Seems like this is where you pay if you don't have a ticket. 200 yen a cup makes sense when you take the budget into account.
ナオリン、資材が足りないってことで友達と一緒に追加の買い物に行ってるみたい。さっき出たばっかりだからちょっと時間かかるかもって。予想外に人が来てるみたいだよ。
羊さん、場を任せられるようにきちんとしていたんだね。
どうする？また後で来る？
せっかく来たしいただいてこっか。またちょっとしたら来ればいいし。
そうだね。うちも座りたかったし。
Miharu nods in agreement. We hand our tickets over and get some coffee. Oh, is something gonna happen to her? No. You tricky. They're the same chairs we use for class, but they have nice tablecloths and decorations set up on the desk. It makes an ideal spot to sit down and escape all the activity outside. The coffee's nice and fragrant, so they definitely worked hard on it. I can just imagine Naomi doing her best to teach everyone how to brew it. I hope to get the chance to taste her coffee once she's back.
羊さんもライオン感が好きみたいだね。
And why don't we stop it there? This is Audapostrophe. You've been watching Fatal 12 on Nintendo Switch. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching. I will see you at the next stream.